under the burden of grief and the burning demand for justice. When bulldozers roll through homes, when hospitals become ruins, when children's laughter is replaced by the wail of ambulances, we cannot be neutral. Silence is the face of such suffering in complicity. For decades, the Palestinian people have paid the cost of wound that world refuses to heal. From the Nakba of 1948 to the wars of 1967 and beyond, millions displaced, generations denied the most basic rights of movement, shelter, dignity. These are not abstractions, they are names, homes, memories, fathers who will never again return from a morning market, mothers who will never tuck in their children. The world's legal and moral institutions have repeatedly warned about mass civilian suffering and possible violations of international law. We must not forget that when bodies pile up, words like strategic objective are vulgarities over human lives. And yet, while we are right to rage at injustice abroad, we must also look the mirror hard and demand honesty at home. A people who shout against the oppression of others while ignoring the screams within their own borders are not defenders of rights. They are profiteers of outrage. Remember 1971 when the Pakistan States campaign in East Pakistan led to mass killings, widespread sexual violence, and the uprooting of people who sought their dignity and independence. Scholars and international bodies have documented the scale and brutality of the campaign. It is one of the South Asia's darkest chapters and cannot be washed away by convenient amnesia. Remember Karachi and the years of blood and fear in the late 1980s and early 1990s. State operations, including the infamous Operation Cleanup, swept through Mahajir neighborhoods with raids, mass arrests, disappearances, and extrajudicial killings. Thousands of Mahajirs were detained, vanished, or killed. Families still search for the missing. In 1990, the Pakka Killa raid in Hyderabad left scores dead and countless families scarred. A wound that Karachi remembers and that no political slogan can heal. Look at Balochistan, to the villages emptied by fear, to the names erased in the list of disappeared. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty have documented patterns of enforced disappearances, abduction, and kill and dump. Tactics used against Baloch activists, students, and leaders. Mothers have waited at courts and offices only to be handed silence. International experts continue to demand Pakistan answer for these deliberate abuses. This is not contested rumor. These are documented human rights violations. Remember the Northwest Province, now KPK, the bombing and clearance operation in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in North Waziristan that displaced nearly 1 million people during large military campaigns such as Operation Zarb-e-Azab. Whole communities were uprooted, children left in tented camps, livelihood shattered. War was waged in the name of security, and yet civilian suffering mounted and the scars of displacement persist. For Sindhis and Pakhtuns, the story is not out of collateral damage, but of political space closed down. Activists intimidated, movements suppressed, voices vanished for Kashmiris. Decades of conflict and proxy violence have brought upending sorrow. Communities trapped between national ambitions and the daily reality of checkpoints, curfews, and the absence of normal life. Brothers and sisters, this is not a laundry list to shame a people. It is a demand for honesty. We cannot meaningfully stand for Palestinians if we will not denounce the same patterns of state violence and impunity wherever they occur. Moral leadership requires consistency. To speak of human rights abroad and to deny them at home is hypocrisy, and hypocrisy is corrosive. It eats away at the very claim to justice. So, what do we demand together? We demand independent investigations into allegations of war crimes and abuses, impartial fact-finding, unfettered access for investigators, and prosecutions where the evidence is clear. International law is not selective. It is a shield for victims and a check on perpetrators. Let that shield be applied evenly. We demand truth for the disappeared, for the Mahajir families who still knock on the court doors, for the Baloch mothers who know the names of their children but not where they lie. Enforced disappearances is a crime. Denial is cruelty. Accountability is the only cure. We demand an end to collective punishment as policy, whether in Gaza, in tribal areas, in restrictive provinces within Pakistan. Security that kills entire communities is false security. Justice for one child is justice for all children. We demand humanitarian corridors, medical relief, and safe passage for civilians trapped in conflict zones. Food, water, shelter. These are not bargaining chips. Denying them is a moral crime against humanity. And we demand that governments stop using a language of solidarity as a political mask. If you stand for Palestine, stand for universal rights. If you speak of occupation, acknowledge your own occupations and abuses. If you demand justice abroad, begin at home. To the mothers and fathers in Gaza, to the families of the disappeared in Balochistan and Karachi, to the displaced in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and the silenced in Sindh, your pain is not a pawn on anyone's chessboard. Your grief deserves truth, not slogans. Tonight, I ask you to carry two truths at once: rage at what is being done to Palestinians and the courage to name wrongs committed by own states and tribes. That dual courage cuts through propaganda. It is uncomfortable. It is necessary. We will not trade one victim's dignity for another's political advantage. We will not let hypocrisy be the currency of international morality. We will mourn loudly and together. We will organize loudly and together. We will press for investigations, for reparations, for change loudly and together. Stand with Palestine and stand for universal justice. Demand truth for the disappeared. Demand accountability for who use power to crush life. Demand that governments who preach morality be held to the same standard they crave to impose. When history writes its ledger, let it not record we clapped when speeches were easy and looked away when the screams were near. Let it record that we stood with truth in our mouths and justice in our hands. For the children in Gaza, for the disappeared in Balochistan, for the families of Pakka Kila, for the displaced of KPK, we stand, we remember, we demand, and we will not be silenced at any cost.